Dear students, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. Asian Business School, under the aegis of Asian Education Group, today is honored to host the very distinguished Dr. Thor Indridason, Senior Professor, Said Business School of the Oxford University, in this live webinar on managing careers. Dr. Thor Indridason gained his doctorate from the University of Oxford and has spent the past 30 years in research, writing, and teaching. His teaching and research areas include employment relations, operations management, and strategy. He has been a lecturer at a number of British universities, including the Oxford University's Said Business School and the University of West England. His interests lie in employment relations, organizational behavior, and general management. His recent research has been in the fields of comparative employment relations, HR management, technology, and automation of work. His publications include Private Finance Initiatives, Corporate Governance and Employee Attitude, an exploratory case study of an NHS hospital, and effective and continuous commitment in public-private partnership. He has also worked as a consultant to public and private organizations. Dr. Thor, Asian Business School, welcomes you to this live webinar.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very honored and happy to be with you today. And I hope it's only the start of several visits to your great institution. So, am I on then?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay. Let me just start my system here. So, I'm very happy to be here today, as I said, and it's a great privilege to work with you and to have the opportunity to give you this talk on careers. I've always thought that careers is an important issue to discuss in any management education. It's often overlooked. We tend to prioritize the different management disciplines, develop our skills and competence in different management areas and systems, but we often overlook what we're going to do next, what we're going to do once the education finishes. And you are now at the end of your education. You have spent the best part of your life in education. You have gone through your childhood education, you have gone through your college, you're now in university, and next you're going to enter the labor market. You're going to take a job. And your immediate priority now, I would reckon, is to find a job once you finish your degree. And if finding a job is your immediate objective, a long-term plan is to develop a career. So what is a career? The understanding and the notion of careers has been changing over the last couple of years, and we do understand the concept of careers differently, and we have a different understanding of how careers should be managed and how careers should be modeled and developed in the course of one's working life. So we have two main definitions of what career is about. And the first definition is that of what we call the traditional career. And this is your advancement within a profession or occupation made possible within an organization. In other words, you take a job with an organization and you develop your career within that organization. So as time passes on, you will move between promotions to ever better jobs, more responsibilities, higher management levels, higher level of salary and benefits, And when you retire, you have reached the pinnacle of your career. Now, this image of the career is, like I said, this is a traditional image. We take a job and we stay with the organization for the long run. We do change jobs, we do change organizations, but not at all that often. We do it maybe every 10, 15, 20 years, but we develop our careers within that organization. Now, this is a traditional notion. And people say we don't live in the tradition any longer. So careers are now managed differently, and they do not follow that traditional pattern anymore. So what do careers look like today? What do these new careers look like? And people say, we are now looking at numerous transitions between numerous jobs, between numerous organizations in different professions across different industries. In other words, we are constantly on the move. We move between jobs, we move between industries, organizations, and professions. And this is a very different understanding of what career is about. This is not about a career within a single organization or 2 or 3 organizations in your working life, throughout your working life. This is the notion of career where you're constantly on the move and changing jobs every few years. You won't stay in a job for more than 3, 4, 5 years and then you move on. So we have these very different understandings of what careers is about. And the question is, what is actually going on? How come that we have such different understanding of careers? And I think the best way to understand this is to look at what has changed in the employment relationship. And when I joined Oxford University as a student in the mid-1990s, one of my tutors was very busy studying something he called the psychological contract. And he is actually one of the leading authorities in employment relations and the nature of the employment relationship, Dr. Ian Kessler. And what he was studying was what has changed in the employment relationship. And his idea was the psychological contract has changed. The psychological contract is not the formal employment agreement we have with our employer. It's more the mutual expectations the employee and the employer bring into the employment relationship. And what the employer expects from you, the employee, is that you will be a good corporate citizen. You will do your job as expected. You will turn up on time in the morning. You will work hard through the day. You will give the organization the best you can. You will be a good employee. What you expect from the employer is that you will be treated well in your job. You will be paid fairly. You will have opportunities to develop and to develop your career. And this is a psychological contract. It is the expectations that we bring into the employment relationship. Now, the psychological contract is very different depending on which career we are looking at. So if we look at the traditional career, we are looking at a career where we had what we sometimes call a job for life, long-term employment. So what the employer promises you as you take a job is long-term employment, employment stability, employment security, stable income, secure income, and career progression and career advancements. The organization basically will take care of your career. You will have opportunities within the organization. This is a traditional notion. In the new career setting, this is very different because what the organization can no longer promise you is long-term employment. They can't promise you a job for life. They can't promise you a job in the longer run. And what they can promise you is, of course, good and fair treatment, good and fair pay. But as they can no longer commit to develop your career, what they can do, the next best thing they can do is to develop your employability. So the promise your organization makes to you is not long-term employment, stable income, employment security. It is to take care of your employability. And in doing that, the organization promises to ensure that when you leave the organization for another job and another organization, you will be more employable than you were when you joined the organization in the first time. In other words, we will take care of your professional skills and professional development. We will offer you training courses and development opportunities that will make you a better professional than you were when you first joined us. So we can't promise you a job for life, but we can make the promise that we will uphold your employability and ensure that you will be a better professional when you leave this organization than when you were when you joined. Now, sometimes this happens, sometimes not. Depends on how committed the employer is to its employees. But let's leave that aside. The question is, how did it come to this? What changed? Why did we move from the traditional careers of long-term mutual commitment to this fluent mobile careers where we cannot commit to a long-term job, long-term employment security, and the best the employer can do is only to promise employability? How did it come to this? And there are many reasons for this actually, but I think we can sum all these reasons up in one word, and that is globalization. Globalization. Globalization has been used to explain everything and anything, but let's stick to globalization here. Because what happens is that in the 1980s, national markets have opened up to international competition to the point where domestic organizations are no longer protected by trade barriers and other forms of protection from international competition. The economies have opened up, allowing foreign competitors to enter our own domestic market and compete there. And in the 1980s and 1990s, competition from low-cost countries, low-cost producers in Asia, primarily in Asia, entered the domestic markets of the Western European countries and the United States. And these new international competitors, they had great advantage. They could offer high-quality products just like the domestic producers could, but they could also offer much lower prices. So our domestic organization were put under immense pressure to deal with this low-cost competition from foreign producers. And that meant we had to rethink our management modules and business models from the very basics. And what organizations had to do was to meet this foreign competition with new strategies. They had to be agile. They had to be responsive. They had to innovate. They had to innovate and ensure that they could develop management systems and production methods which would allow them to reduce costs and compete against those international low-cost producers. They also had to be much more agile and responsive, so every time there was a change in the competitive environment, they could respond to it in a fairly quick manner. So the notion of the day was flexibility. Organizations had to be flexible. They had to be able to respond quickly and flexibly to challenges from foreign competition. Now, that also meant flexibility in terms of staff management and in the way organizations dealt with the labor market. So, for example, organizations started to develop new skills within the organization. They started to multi-skill their staff to ensure that they could make a better use of their employees. So you could be moved from one job to the next and you would always be good at what you did because you had learned new trades and new skills and you could be deployed in different jobs within the organization. That was one form of flexibility. The other form of flexibility was to vary the numbers of employees. So when the competition got tough, we unfortunately had to lay people off. We had to sack them. We had to dismiss them. And when the situation improved, we could recruit people back into the organization again. That was one form of flexibility. Now, it's not good for employees to be in a job with that insecurity, always in the fear of losing your job in case the competition got too tough. But as organizations had to or found themselves pressed to take this flexible approach, so did the employees. And the notion was if the organization can no longer guarantee long-term employment, employment security, stable income, and overall employment stability, if the organization can no longer guarantee that, I will have to take care of my own career. I will have to develop my own career. I can no longer rely on any one organization to look after my career. I will have to do that. So as organizations became flexible, so became the individuals, because they now had to take much more responsibility for their own career development. And they had to take a flexible approach. They had to be open to which jobs to take, which organizations to work for, where do the opportunities lie, where can I learn, where can I develop my skills. We had to be much more calculated and we had to take the responsibility with an open mind of what we were going to do next in terms of doing a job and developing our careers. And this also meant another thing. This also meant that it was not only about selecting the jobs we would like to take, we were interested in, and we believed would contribute to our career objectives. We also had to take care of our own training and skills development. We had to continue basically to develop ourselves professionally. The organization was no longer going to do that. We had to do that. And so we had to continue to read and attend training courses and develop our skills and be responsible now for our own professional employability. So the onus was on the employee now to take care of his own fate in the labor market, to manage his or her own career. In other words, we sometimes say we had to develop what we call a portfolio career. So over time, when you look at your CV, you will look at the series of jobs you have done over a period of time, because you move from organization to the next. And you're doing different jobs in different industries, different professions, different organizations. And your CV is a portfolio of a very varied and diverse experience. And as you read through your CV, you will see that over time you've developed all sorts of skills and gained all sorts of experience. And this has all come because we don't have the traditional career to fall on any longer. Now, this is a very logical thing. This is what happens when organizations become flexible and put you under pressure to be flexible also in the management of your career. It's a very logical thing. The only problem is, it's really not like that. It's really not like that. What I have been saying is more a theory than a fact. So what is going on? The reality is, there is not so much new about the new careers. They have always been with us. And the old traditional career really never went away. It never died down. It's still with us. It's still very much alive and well. So how come that people are so wound up about all these new career prospects? And I think there are three main reasons for that. The first one is that in the 1980s and 1990s, as we watched organizations respond to globalization by developing more flexible approach to how they manage employees, we assumed that the employees would also become much more flexible in the labor market. And as a matter of fact, we had research in the 1990s and early 2000s, which actually showed that the new career was there. It was developing, and a big chunk of people were actually now on a career path, which was what we normally call as new career models. When we look at this research, and this has been criticized quite a bit, it's often based on anecdotal evidence. It's often based on case studies. And one of few famous research into careers and career expectations were done among young people. And young people that were surveyed saw themselves as very mobile in the labor market, moving from one organization to the next throughout their careers, and continuously developing their skills, developing their career, and continuously learning. And we assumed that this was going to be the future. This was what people were going to do in the future. They were going to be mobile and flexible, not necessarily because they had to do that, but also because they wanted to do that. Now, these studies were often of limited cohorts, organizational cases, industry cases, but what they did not do was to give a general trend, to give us an idea of what the general trend in society was like. And when we looked at that, we realized that nothing much was really changing. The traditional career was still there. People were still in jobs in the long run and had no intention of changing jobs. And if they changed jobs, they did so maybe 2 or 3 or 4 times over their working life. So nothing really changed here. So we did get it a little bit wrong through research. We assumed that flexibility in the management of organization would lead to flexible careers. That did not happen, not as we expected it to happen. The second thing to say about this is that we have always had the new careers with us. And some people commit to their organization and stay with the organization in the long run. Other people, especially those who have developed professional skills, they are committed to their profession and they are committed to their skills and skills development rather than an organization. And many specialized professionals that are committed to the profession, they tend to be more mobile in the labor market because they see it necessary to continue to develop their skills wherever they can do that. So we have had professions where people have always been very mobile between organizations and in the labor market. Journalists, some engineers, some managers, and my favorite group is IT professionals. And let's stick to IT professionals for a while. IT professionals work in an industry, in a profession, which is continuously developing and developing very fast. And many of these people have the impression that they cannot stay in a job for too long, because if they're going to stay on top of their profession, if they're going to maintain their professional skills and follow the development in software and hardware production, they need to change jobs on a regular basis and quite often. They need, in other words, they need to chase the development, and that, as they chase this development, it takes them from one organization to the next and across different industries. And many professions have always been like that. Professionals have tended to be more committed to their profession than the organization. And that commitment tends to make them more mobile on the labor market than they would otherwise be. So for them, employment security within a single organization is less of a priority than staying good in your profession and maintaining your skills and employability at top level at all times. That was the second point. The third point I would like to mention here is the generational dimension to career development. And that is a very simple and logical fact. That is, young people have always been much more mobile on the labor market than those who are older. And they're more flexible. And that is a very natural thing. When you, I dropped out here. Let me see if I can get this up again. Hello.
Yes, sir?
Yeah, can you see me?
Yes, yes, of course, sir.
Okay, it dropped off. I'll continue then.
Yes.
Young people have always been much more mobile on the labor market, and that's a very natural thing, because when you finish your degree, you're not going to take the job. Your first job is not going to be the job you would like to have. The first job you will take is an entry-level job in an organization. You're learning to be a manager. You're studying management. When you take your first job, you're not going to manage anything, I would reckon. You're going to be the one who is going to be managed. So you move on square one as you take your first job. But that's only a first job. Over time, you will be promoted. You will have other opportunities. You will move from this job to another job. And over a period of a couple of years, you will develop your skills. You will develop your experience. You will develop your skills. You will continue to learn, and you will be more competent as you move on from one job to the next. This has always been like that. Young people are much more mobile as they are building up their job experience and developing their skills and developing their competence. It is necessary it's a necessary part of the process of developing your career to be mobile and flexible in the early years, to try out new things, learn new things, meet new people, try out different industries, work in different organizations, and become ever more experienced and ever more competent. Nothing new about that. What young people have always tended to develop their skills in this manner, which has led them to take series of jobs in serious organization. And as I say this, it pops into my head that a few years ago, I saw a research done by some Harvard academics, and they were looking at young people in their early career stages. And their research came up with that in the first 10 years of your career, you will change jobs every year. More precisely, in the first 10 years, you will have 9.3 jobs on average. And this is simply the process of developing yourself in your early stages of your career. Now, as you gain this experience, at some stage, you will put your foot down and you will look at your CV and you will say, this looks good. Now I feel competent and now I feel confident in applying for the job at the level I would like to work at. And you apply for that job and eventually you will get that job. This is a job you always wanted. This is a job you trained for. This is a job you educated yourself for. You spent 10 years moving between organizations in order to develop your skills so you could get that one job. And now when that job is yours, you're going to hold on to it. You're going to stick to it. You're not going to leave this job because this is what you always wanted to do. And this is where you see yourself in the foreseeable future. Now you have left the mobile, flexible new career and you have taken up a career which is much more traditional. Now you are planning to stay in this job and stay with that organization in the long run. There's also another thing to this, and that is as you get older, you move between stages of your life. When you leave university in your early 20s, you have no serious commitments. You may not have families. You may not have financial commitments like a mortgage on a house. And without family commitments, without serious financial commitments, you are much more able to move about. There's nothing to hold you down. There's nothing to pin you down in one organization, in one job. You are free to move. There's no family holding you back. There's no mortgage or financial commitments holding you back. You can move. You can try out new things. You can move from one city to the next as you take new jobs. And then you reach a new stage in your life. You meet a boyfriend, you meet a girlfriend, you get married and the first child comes and then the second child, and you decide to buy a house. And you realize that you can't be as free as you used to be. You have to settle down. And with a family and financial commitment, now you need stability. Now you need security. You need stable income. You need a job which is safe, which gives you security, pays, and you're not looking to lose that job for the foreseeable future. So your priorities change. Now you need a job for life in the long run. So you move again, you move from this flexible career and you settle down in a much more traditional long-term career where your priorities are now stable income and employment security. This has this is also a natural part of the process. There's nothing new about this. It has always been like that. Young people, they tend to behave differently, and they tend to follow what we often see as a new career pattern. And I remember one of my students a few years back wrote a dissertation, wrote a master's dissertation, doing a survey among university graduates in the business school where I work. And she found that those who were under 28, they tended to be much more flexible in their approach to how they planned to manage a career than those who were over 28. Because those who were over 28, they were often in a relationship, they often had already worked in an organization, and they were looking to a much more stable employment. So this is a bit of a generational thing. So the point to make here is, so I summarize this, we expected things to change around the 1990s. That as organizations and industries became more flexible as they responded to globalization and international competition, we expected the careers to become more flexible. That didn't happen all that much. We had some research out on it, but that research did not produce any conclusive evidence of any major change in the labor market. What we do have is we continue to have people who have always been flexible and mobile in the labor market. They used to be like in the 1950s and 60s, and they are still like that. People that are more committed to their professions than a single organization. Also, when we look at young people, they are much more flexible, they're much more mobile, and they are much more inclined on developing skills and experience than those who are older, who have already been through that stage and don't need that any longer. And as you get older, you need to settle down and you need stability, you need secure employment because you have commitments in your life. And in order to ensure that those commitments are secure, you need a stable job. So the point is that we have always had these two types of careers side by side. And as you leave your university, you will move on to spend the next 5 till 10 years trying out new things, developing your skills in different organizations, learning, gaining new experience, until you reach the level where you believe you have developed yourselves to the point where you can apply for the job you would like to hold for the future. Nothing new about that. I would like to end this with a few points of advice, which I sometimes give my students when I talk about their careers. And the first thing is that no matter what job you have, whether you are in a secure job or in a flexible job, whether you believe you're a mobile employee or you're in a traditional career, you always have to take responsibility for your own career. You can't rely on anyone else to do that, organization or a manager. You will have to manage your own career. You will have to set your own career objectives. Where do you like to see yourself in the next 10, 15, 20 years? What jobs would you like to take that would help you to develop your skills and competences on your way to that job you would like to hold in the future? You need to strategically select the jobs you take. We don't always have a choice of which jobs we take. Sometimes we are in a situation that we have to take a job, whatever that job is. But as much as you can, look at the opportunities you have and ask which of those opportunities are going to give me the best opportunities to develop myself along the way where I would like to see myself in the future. The second advice I would like to give to you is that keep developing your professional skills and competencies. Continue to read, continue to buy books, continue to go to webinars, to training courses, because that's where you get new ideas from. This is what refreshes your knowledge, allows you to develop new interests, new methods, new approaches. You know, new ideas always come from somewhere. And if you stop reading, if you stop training, if you stop developing yourself, you're not going to develop anything new. You need material to come up with something new. And the more you continue to develop your knowledge and skills through training and through reading, the more able you will be to contribute to your employing organization, to come out with interesting suggestions and ideas your organization can use. And this is only going to work in your benefit and help you to advance your career. So never stop learning. Never stop learning. Also, continue to develop your CV and document your achievements. Document your achievement, document events where you believe you did well in your job. Because when you go to job interviews, for example, and when you write your CV, you will be asked, can you name me an example of when you made a difficult decision? Can you give me an example of when you employed effectively your negotiation skills? So make a notion of your achievements, and when you do well, make a notion of it so you have it documented, and when you go for job interviews, you can refer to that. Those examples of where you did well and where you excelled in your job. Still another advice I would like to give you is that in every employment, learn from your colleagues. You may be given a mentor, someone to look after you. It's often a line manager, but learn from your colleagues. See how they work, ask them questions, and ensure that when you leave the organization, you have done a fair amount of learning. So make good use of the people you work with and learn from them. And finally, network. Network. Now, when you leave the university, stay in touch with your classmates. Follow them, follow what they are doing, keep them informed about what you are doing, and make sure that when you move on, you always stay in touch with your people you have been working with and studying with. Build up your network. If there is an opening in your organization, you can go to your manager and say, I know a guy from my university who would be a good employee here. I would like to recommend him for the job. And you give this opportunity to your old mate to apply for that job. So you create relationships. You make sure that you operate your network. They will do the same for you. So they will call you up and say, we need someone in the organization with your experience and use your skills. So make sure that you stay in touch with the people you work with, and you stay in touch with the people you study with, and keep your network alive. This is going to be an important vehicle as you develop your career. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. I don't know how long I've been talking. Maybe I've been talking too long. But if you have any questions, I would be very happy to take few.
Yes, Dr. Thor, there's an assortment of questions. In fact, the first question was from our students who are just about to step into their management career. And they were looking for some pointers as to how to manage their career graph, which you've wonderfully detailed. So I think we could move on to the next question, or would you like to add something to that?
What was the point she made you say?
Yeah, the question was that we have with us our students who are just about to begin their careers in various fields of management. What specific pointers would you like to give them on managing their career graph?
Yeah, the very specific point I would like to make is there's a few points. Number one, don't put your expectations too high. When you take your first job, you will always move into an entry level of an organization. You will always start at the bottom. You know, we have always been there. We have all been there. We have to start somewhere. There's always a square one for everyone. But as you move on to square one, make the most of the opportunities you have in that job. And keep an eye on for opportunities to develop when you feel ready to move on. Apply for a promotion in your organization, or apply for a job in another organization which will take you to the next level. Just stay focused on what you would like to do. Where would you like to take your career? As you are in your first job, ask yourself, is this something I would like to do? What would be the next logical step for me? How can I prepare for it? And in every job you take, at whatever level you take that job, learn as much from your colleagues and from the organization as you possibly can. And because you are a professional now, you have been in the university, you have been developing professional skills. And you're only going to be as good a professionals as your skills allow you. And skills, they don't stay there forever. If you don't look after your skills, they will vanish, they will disappear, you will lose your competence. So you need to continue to learn, to study, to read, and learn from your colleagues and learn from your experience. Never stop doing that. Never stop doing that. As you continue to study or as you continue to learn in your first job, you will eventually be ready to move on to your next job. And you will repeat the whole cycle there. You will study and you will learn until you feel ready to move on to the third job. And that is how it goes. Just make sure that you don't sleep on the guard, that you keep developing yourself and you keep your objective alive, that you have a vision for yourself of where you would like to see yourself in the next 10, 15, 20 years. What would be the logical way for me to develop to that level?
Should I come up with the next question?
Yeah.
Dr. Thor? Yeah. What are the various expectations of corporates, and especially the reporting boss, from the management graduates starting their jobs?
When organizations recruit graduates, they normally do that with the intention of developing skills and competence that stay with the organization. Now, no organization would like to recruit someone and make an investment in an individual only to see that person leave in 2 or 3 or 4 years. So when you take your first job, and if it is a graduate, if you take a job on a graduate scheme, where the organization makes a promise to develop your skills and develop your competence and develop you as a professional, what you would expect from the organization is that the organization stays true to that promise, that they will develop you, they will give you opportunities. But the organization would expect you to commit both to the organization and to the job, and be willing to learn and willing to put yourself out for the organization. So in this situation, I think the mentoring relationship is absolutely crucial, that you have a relationship with your line manager or someone who will mentor you, who will guide you through the job and look after you for the first couple of months in the job. But the organization would certainly expect you to commit to the organization, be a good employee, and put yourself out for the organization, work hard and give your best, be a good professional. Now, I have done a bit of research into graduate schemes and graduate jobs. And the sad truth is that many organizations have a very high level of turnover on the graduate schemes and in graduate jobs, which means that the graduates, they don't stick around, they leave. And they often leave because they feel that the organization has not kept its part of the bargain. They haven't developed their skills to the point as the employees or the graduates expected. If that is your case, if you feel that your organization is really not giving you opportunities to develop and you feel stuck, then I would say it's time for you to look at your options. You can go to your line manager and you can press, you can ask if anything can be done about this, if they can move your career along, giving you more opportunities to learn, to study, to develop, to promote you. If that is not the case, and this is the case with many graduates, then they move on to the next organization. And it's very common, like I said, young people in the early careers tend to change jobs almost on a regular basis every year for the first 10, 12 years. It's very common. But an organization would certainly expect you to be a good citizen and work hard. But you need to keep in mind what you are looking to get out of the job also, and what you are looking to get out of that employment also. And if you feel that you're not getting anywhere in this job and there are no opportunities, it would be a time for you to rethink and reevaluate your situation and probably move on to the next job opportunity that opens up.
Thank you so much. Dr. Thor, in your opinion, what are the various upcoming sectors for the youth in the changing global scenario?
The most interesting sectors.
The upcoming sectors.
I'm not sure, because in my time, all the sectors continue to stay there. What changes is not necessarily the industrial landscape. It's not that we have so many new sectors coming up. All the main industrial sectors are there, and they are doing the same as they've always done. The car industry continues to produce cars today as they used to do in the 1900s. What changes are the jobs and the technology we work with. And as technology develops and as management systems develop, new professions are created and new ways of working are created. And rather than try and look for new sectors, I think it's more important to actually look at what is happening within all the main traditional sectors, what the changes are taking place there. Because the challenge for every employee, especially these days, we have new technologies being introduced in the workplace at a very fast rate. And people are losing their jobs, and jobs are changing because people are working with new technologies. Workplaces are changing, and rather than look to new sectors, I think it's more important to look to what is happening within sectors, the existing sectors, and what technological developments are happening, what management systems are being developed, and what ways of working are being developed, and try and keep on top of that. So organizations always take care of the type of skills they need. So every time an organization changes a management system, changes the way we do our jobs, introduces new technology, a training will be provided. And it's, as employees, it's our duty to basically to engage with that training and continue to develop our skills. So rather than look to new sectors, I think it's more important to look at what is happening in across different sectors now, because we are now running quite fast to keep up with the new technological innovations. And much of the technological or much of the professional development in the future will be about learning to master new technologies and use new technologies in our jobs. And I think that is where our focus needs to be on.
Dr.
To keep
Thor,
up, basically to keep up with the innovation.
okay. Dr. Thor, what are the various trends in the work-life policies? Could you throw some light on that?
The various trends in work-life policies. Now, let me look across the board. Sometime in the 1990s, we introduced the concept of the learning organization. And the concept of the learning organization was the necessity in every organization for employees to continue to learn, continue to improve the way they worked, develop themselves professionally, and the organization had actually the duty to help them with that by offering training programs and training schemes, and share the knowledge between different employees. Now, knowledge in the 1990s, when we realized in the 1990s that knowledge was going to be essential, ever since then, human resource management as a management profession has emphasized the importance of investing in staff, investing in staff skills and staff development. And training and development of staff, the core of the learning organization, is now seen as an essential policy for every organization that is operating in a competitive environment. We need to continue to learn. The organization only develops through its staff, and staff only develops through continuous learning. So learning in an organization is a very important policy. Another policy is flexibility. How can we make the most use of our staff in terms of developing new skills, developing multiple skills, and in developing staff management systems that allow us to deploy our staff flexibly and across different tasks and different responsibilities. That's another form of flexibility. A part of that is flexible work arrangements, and that ties into another element, which we often call family-friendly policies, which is about enabling parents and people with family commitments to take full part in the organization and in working life by developing management systems that allow us to allow these people to work in an organization. for the organization, the benefits are we don't lose people because of inflexibility. We don't lose people because we are not giving parents the flexibility to manage family responsibilities and working life in a sensible way. Family-friendly policies and flexible work arrangements will allow the organization basically much more to recruit the talent they need, and maybe more importantly, to keep the talent and not lose talent because of inflexibility. The final and the most important policy area in human resource management, I would think, is now diversity and diversity management, equal opportunities and diversity management. And I think it's absolutely vital for every organization to, every time we recruit someone, to cast the net wide, to ensure that our job opportunities are presented across society, across different communities, across different cohorts within community, and ensure that no particular segment of society is excluded from the opportunity to join the organization. The point is that only by doing this can we approach and recruit the best talent wherever we can find them, And an organization which has a rather narrow approach to how they recruit, for example, they only advertise online, they only advertise in certain newspapers, they have a fairly narrow approach. They are denying themselves access to the labor market and potential talent which would benefit the organization. So I think diversity management and equal opportunities are probably the most important policies in human resource management today, to ensure that the organization operates across the entire labor market, across the entire economy and the entire society, and that no segment is somehow excluded from the domain of the organization.
So do you think the gig economy will become the norm in the years to come? If yes, what time horizon do you give to it?
The gig economy is it's difficult to say where the gig economy is going to go at the moment, because people working in the gig economy are normally people with no employment security at all. They have no entitlements to sick pay, to holidays, to pay raises, to promotion. They are very vulnerable to changes in the employment environment. And if anything, what we have seen happening now in the last few months in this coronavirus situation is the inequality this situation has created. And on the disadvantage are the people in the gig economy, because as everything closes down, they have no security. They have there's no one to pay their benefits. There's no one to pay their wages. They have no secure job to return to. The gig economy it may work for some. It may work for people who are starting their career and developing something. But I think at some stage, people would like to get out of the gig economy and into more secure employment. And for many people, the gig economy is an option they did not want to take. But they didn't have any other option. They lost a job, and there was nothing else for them to do. They couldn't find another job, so they had to sort themselves out by coming up with something in the gig economy. I've read some studies about people working in the gig economy, and for some people it works. It works maybe for young people. It may work for young people, but for people with commitment, you need more stability, you need more security. And at best, the gig economy can be a temporary option. I wouldn't say any more than that. It's not a permanent option. It's not a long-term prospect.
Dr. Thor, would you like to leave a message for Asian Business School students?
Yes, my message is that I wish you all the very best, and I know this is it's a tough world out there, and it's gonna be a bit of a struggle to develop your career in the first couple of years, and you will probably experience some disappointments. You will move from job to job, but in the end, it always tends to work out. We have all been there. We have all been graduates. We have all had to take our first job and develop ourselves from there. The most important thing is that as you enter the labor market, that you develop a vision for yourself, that you develop a vision of where you would like to go, where you would like to see yourself in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And as you develop your career and as you make your career moves, you think strategically, would that be a good option for me? What would be the best option for me now on my way to the job I would like to hold in the future? Most of all, be patient, be resilient, never give up, and continue to read and continue to learn, and never let down your professional standards. You have spent so many years learning since you were what, 5, 6, 7, and you're still learning. Never let that down. You never stop learning. Continue to read, continue to learn, continue to go to training courses, because workplaces are moving, workplaces are developing, technology is continuously being introduced in the workplaces, and we need to keep up. So keep that in mind. It is important to learn and continue to learn and study and develop yourselves. But be patient and resilient. Good things come slow.
Asian Business School is delighted, Dr. Thor, that you could spare time for us from your busy schedule. Certainly, students will have bagfuls of takeaway from your session. We appreciate your presence here and are grateful for the sound advice given to our students, clearing the cobwebs and doubts rampant in their minds in these cataclysmic times. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.